Hey y'all, Sam from Rat Pod here, and today's topic is wheels. So if you clicked on this video looking for the answer to, do rats need a wheel? The short answer is no. So if that's all you were looking for, you can go ahead and click away. But if you want to hear a little bit more about the topic of wheels, why I use a rat wheel for my girls, what kind of wheels are appropriate for rats, stick around for a few minutes and we will dive deep into this topic. So there are three basic rules that I like to talk about with rat wheels. First rule is rats do not need a wheel. It's not necessary. They will get plenty of exercise and stimulation and brain engagement without a wheel. The second rule is no wheel is better than a bad wheel. Hello, Miss Baker. Can you please keep your carrot in? No. Carrot goes in the cage. Thank you. Pardon the interruption. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, there's an old axiom that says no D&D is better than bad D&D. And that is actually true for rat wheels. No wheel is better than a bad wheel. And that basically means if the only wheel you have on hand is too small, or if it's not appropriate, or if it's too loud, or whatever that may be, get rid of it. It's much better to have no wheel for your rats than a wheel that's not appropriate. Third rule about wheels, bigger is better. Now, what I typically keep in their cage that I don't have in right now is this 16-inch wooden wheel, and it's got a carpet lining right here. Even if it didn't have the carpeting, it would be okay for the rats. Hello, you're right on the microphone, honey. Hello. Even if it didn't have the carpet, it would be fine for the rats. Really, material-wise, anything solid and smooth is fine. I have seen wheels for other small animals that come with a bit of sandpaper in them. If you see that in a wheel, get rid of that. That's gonna probably hurt your rat's feet. They don't need that. It's not gonna really trim down their nails, and the risk of hurting their feet on it really outweighs the potential benefit of trimming nails. Material-wise, the main thing you wanna look out for is wires. Absolutely no wire wheels. I've covered this in multiple videos before, but you really don't want your rats to be walking on wire very often at all. In fact, if you have wire ramps or wire platforms or a wire bottom in your cage, just make sure it's covered, because if they walk on it a lot, it can cause an issue called bumblefoot. Every now and then, your rats obviously are gonna climb wire walls or step on something wire. That's fine, it's not a huge deal. In fact, they have momentary access sometimes to the bottom of this cage, which I'm trying to remedy right now, but just stepping on it is not gonna cause the problem. It's actually prolonged walking or running on wire that can really cause issues. So of course you don't want that in a wheel, because if it's a wheel, they're going to run on it for potentially long periods of time, and that will almost definitely cause your rats to get bumblefoot. There are a lot of different kinds of materials that are totally fine for rat wheels. As long as it's pretty smooth and it's not rough and is gonna damage their feet, it's probably okay. The real thing to consider with the material is it easy to clean? Is it really loud? The cleanliness is partly for your comfort, because if it starts to stink really bad, that is not going to be very cool for you. But also, if it's really hard to clean, it's gonna absorb ammonia, and that ammonia is gonna sit there and it can actually damage your rat's respiratory systems, and we really want to avoid that. The other thing about the noise, that's a lot less for the rats and more for you. For me, I know that I keep my cage in my bedroom, and so if they're up all night sprinting on a really loud wheel, that will keep me up. In fact, recently when I reinstalled the wheel after cleaning it, I'd put it in a way that made the cage wobble when they ran on it, and it was so loud I had to get up at like 1 a.m. and completely just take it out of the cage because they were running on it so much. The second really important topic to cover is size of wheel. What is an appropriate size of wheel, and why is this so important? First of all, a wheel that is too small will eventually cause a problem known as wheel tail in rats, where if they're running on a wheel that's too small, their tail will curve back over their spine. And in fact, their tail is part of the rat's spine. So holding it in that curved position for a long period of time can actually make it stuck in that position. It would kind of be like if you held your arm over your head for a long time, it would eventually get stuck in that position, and your tendons and your joints would start to deteriorate. It's kind of like that. So just imagine having to hold your arms up all the time. It's basically like that, and can cause some pretty serious problems for your rats. So The minimum size for any wheel for any rat is going to be 14 inches for females and 16 inches for males, because males typically are bigger. In some very rare cases, you could use a 12-inch wheel. Like, I actually ended up with some 12-inch wheels that I got secondhand when my girls were really young, and it was fine for them for about 3 weeks until I noticed they had grown a little bit and suddenly the wheels seemed way too small, so I had to remove them. And this goes back to the second rule, which is no wheel is better than a bad wheel. And for my girls, I knew that they really liked having the wheel and they were running on it constantly, but as soon as they outgrew it, I got really uncomfortable about having them on it. So I took it out before it became an issue, and then they just didn't have a wheel for a little bit, and I eventually got a bigger one. My big wooden one here, like I said, is 16 inches. That is technically slightly overkill for my girls based on their size, but like Rule 3 says, bigger is better. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you've probably seen some videos of my rats running on their mega wheel, which is what I like to call it. I have a wheel for them that is designed for cats. It's actually currently sitting on top of their cage right here. It's designed for cats, and at first, when I got it, I wasn't sure they were gonna use it at all, or even be able to use it, but I picked it up secondhand from someone who bought it for their cat, and the cat didn't use it, so I figured I'll give it a shot with the rats. And lo and behold, they actually love it. Obviously, it's way too big to put in their cage, so it's only for free roam time, but for those free roam times, they will get going crazy on it. They will run so fast on that thing, it's insane. Something to keep in mind if you do end up getting a big wheel like this for your rats is that you probably... Sorry, Miss Baker just threw my wallet off my desk. Why do you hate me? The thing you need to pay attention to when you're using a big wheel like that is you should probably be supervising your rats anytime they're on it. Even though I've seen quite a few rat owners using a similar wheel, I've never heard of anyone's rats getting hurt on it, but it could happen. So just pay attention. I had an incident where Lena decided she wanted to stop running on the wheel while the other two girls were running on it, and she zoomed all the way around.
Oh my God.
I don't think she would have gotten hurt even if she fell, but you never know, so it's always best to keep an eye on them. Now, not all rats are gonna wanna use a wheel. In fact, I've heard from many owners of boy rats that boy rats are just not interested in wheels because they're lazy. And that's totally fair. All rats have very unique personalities, and I've noticed that my girls have different preferences. My girl, Miss Abel, is an obsessive runner. She's constantly on the wheel, and I will see her rip the other girls off the wheel when it's her turn to run. So she really loves it, and the other girls will use the wheel, but they are not quite as obsessive runners as Miss Abel is. So it's just something to keep in mind. You never know if your rats are gonna like it or not. You may end up spending $50 on a wheel that they don't even wanna use, and that's just one of the risks of being a small pet owner, is that you never know what they're actually gonna use. Oftentimes when I buy a toy for my rats, they end up preferring the cardboard box that it came in. So for me, I got the wheel because there was a period where I knew that I wasn't going to be able to give them as much free roam time as I would have liked for a few weeks. And having the wheel in their cage made me a lot more confident that they were going to be getting plenty of exercise during that period, even though I wasn't able to let them out for quite as long as I would have liked for free roam. So that is why I use a wheel. And again, I don't always keep it in their cage. Often they only have access to a wheel during free roam time. Sometimes it is in the cage, sometimes this one is in the cage, sometimes it's not, just depending on the configuration that I'm running with that week or that month or whatever. So I can't even give a recommendation for whether or not you should use a wheel for your rats, because if I recommend you to get a wheel and your rats don't use it. That said, if you are interested in trying out one of the big wheels for your rats, I'm gonna link that down in the description below. I actually really recommend trying to find anything like this secondhand because, like I said, you don't know if your pets are gonna use it, and there's probably another pet owner out there whose animal did not wanna use the wheel that they bought for them. So you could probably pick it up from them for pretty cheap on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. So I recommend checking there first, but if you just wanna order something off Amazon, this is gonna be linked down in the description. I hope that answered all your questions about rats and wheels and gave you some insight into my decision making about how I use wheels with my rats. If you have any further questions on this topic, drop them in the comments below. And if you want to hear about something specific from me in the future, you can put that in the comments as well. There will be more weekly videos from me coming soon, so stay tuned for that and make sure to hit subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.